Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Big Brain Time Debate Podcast. And we have a guest today. Introduce yourself.
Hi, that's me. I'm the guest. Hi, I'm Beth McDonald.
I'm Seth.
I'm Ira.
I'm Jared.
And today, we're thinking about something that I don't know if a lot of people think about. Which Disney princess suffered the most? We think of them as being very wholesome films, but gosh dang, these princesses go through some bad stuff sometimes. So we've each chosen one Disney princess each.
So today I am arguing that Rapunzel from Tangled has been neglected and abducted and abused throughout her lifetime, and therefore she has it worst.
All right, I'm taking a minute to read up on Snow White here on Wikipedia. So,
So now we know your pick, Jared.
Yes, I picked Snow White because Emily from Corpse Bride is unfortunately not a Disney character.
So I picked. I know she's not a legit princess, but she's on the list of unofficial princesses. So I picked her, Esmeralda from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
And then I picked Cinderella.
Nala from The Lion King. Right off the bat, I would like to argue Nala has had it pretty bad because she not only thought that the king of her tribe and of her entire land and her best friend were both died all at once, and it was then taken over by a dictator who basically made her and her friends all be hunters for him, and basically she was being used as an instrument to slowly destroy the land and hoard up the all of the livestock. So it's a pretty horrific existence when you think about it.
I will say to your side, Seth, the musical helps your point if you haven't seen the Lion King musical.
I have not.
Yeah, there's because I'm helping you. I'm only helping you here. I don't know why.
I'll take it.
And I saw it on stage. I saw the Broadway version on stage, and
Jealous.
And part of it was Scar was hitting on Nala.
So that makes it just a little bit more terrifying.
A little bit uncomfortable.
Your best friend's creepy uncle who has seized dictatorship and is slowly destroying all the world that you know.
But yeah, is that not the life of a lion? Lions are kind of built keeping away mates they don't want, endless fighting between different prides. It's just the circle of life.
Well, you can say that, but I mean, we have a pretty clear counter-argument, which is that Mufasa's rule was fantastic. And why should we say that the norm is the worst scenario that's literally killing the land? Wouldn't the norm be Mufasa's rule, where the land was all prospering?
I don't know, circle of life, circle of death.
Yeah, she didn't seem to be suffering directly from the land's, catastrophe because she eats animals. And, she would have only started suffering towards the end of the movie as, the rest of the hyenas and stuff are suffering because, they've driven off all the herds.
So Esmeralda, she's persecuted, number one. Number two, she is being chased by this creepy old dude who wants to molest her. That's the entire, he sings this whole song about it. It's really bad. She's almost burnt at the stake.
Kyle, do you know which Disney princess does die?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Mr. Jared. You go ahead and go for it.
Well, she does get brought back to life. It did require a prince. The inspiration for Snow White was apparently from a story about a woman who, at 16, she was forced by her stepmother to move away to Brussels. She fell in love with a prince. Her father and stepmother disapproved of the relationship, considering it politically inconvenient, and then she mysteriously died at 21 by a poisoning. And I will have to say that that's a pretty sucky life.
May I also add to your point that later on, the writers said that she was 13 and her prince was 21.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that last week.
We talked about this. It was worse. It was 14 and 31, if I remember correctly.
Ew.
So in other words, all of the thus far mentioned princesses have had creepy older men.
It's like all of yours up to this point, only been dealt with, with creepy old man. Mine, yes, didn't have to deal with a creepy old man, but instead a creepy old woman. Nala gets to have, for most part, decent childhood. Staying for the first part of her childhood was good, and then, maybe the second part, maybe not so good, but at least she was still well fed. Esmeralda still, we don't know exactly about her childhood and, her past and, what struggle she had to go through, but at least, she had the loving warmth of her people. And then, Snow White was pretty much fine until her stepmother, got jealous.
Mhm.
And, mine, ever since, her dad had married another woman and then died, she was forced basically to be the slave of the household. And then she has to go through the trauma of getting the hope of, meeting the prince at the dance by making her own dress, only to get that dress literally ripped in front of her by her stepsisters. And then if we include the third movie, because it involves a time skip.
Oh shoot, we're jumping sequels. Oh no, I completely forgot about this.
She has to go through a lot more to get to her happy ending, which also involves a very traumatic, carriage ride in the twisted form of her, wonderful pumpkin evening. And also, her getting almost replaced by one of her sisters, basically. She went through a lot. I wouldn't be surprised that if she needed some, decent therapy afterwards.
Yeah, but I don't think any of our choices had some fairy godmother showing up and like setting everything in her lap.
This is true.
The lions had to fight to the death to free their land. They didn't have no fairy god lion showing up and saying bippity boppity rar. I don't know.
Hippity boppity rar XD.
I don't know what a lion godmother would say, but that's my best guess.
Might I argue that Rapunzel literally didn't even know her parents? At least Cinderella knew her dad for the first 7, 8, maybe 10 years of her life. Rapunzel didn't even know that other humans existed. She didn't know that her hair was special because the only person she ever knew was Mother Gothel, who just fed her lies her entire childhood from the time she was an infant until she was days before 18. She was led to believe that everything outside of that castle was out to get her. Like she was bred with this fear of the world, of everything in existence except Mother Gothel, who was really the only person out to get her in the first place. Like that is some serious therapy needed.
I can definitely see where you're coming from. That does make sense. So, but I'm still gonna stick to my guns here that I think Esmeralda has suffered more. But I can definitely see the traumatizing effects of that manipulation and that isolation.
I would also argue that Cinderella did experience a lot of isolation, kind of being kept in the family home, during that time as a servant. I mean, they probably wouldn't want people to know who she really is, being, the daughter of the guy who owned the house. That would probably cause a social scandal. So I'm sure she wasn't allowed.
Although there are
social
some
contact with
sociological
any
and
besides her
psychological
mice.
studies saying that staying isolated like Rapunzel did for that amount of time will set you back so far that you'll never be able to come back and socialize properly. So for all we know, Rapunzel will never be able to socialize properly because of her isolation. I've totally given up on my and my argument, by the way, and I'm just hanging along with.
I mean, she did do pretty well in that bar, though. She got them all singing.
We have Zoom's going to start kicking us off. I have also abandoned my princess. Nala did not have it as bad as these people.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think.
So out of these 5, if we were doing this to be ranking wise, would we put Snow White at the bottom at number 5?
Snow White got murdered.
Yeah, but she lived afterwards, and it wasn't exactly a violent death.
True, but she still got murdered for like a period of time.
Would you say that that's worse off than Esmeralda?
No, I'm not saying that.
All right, I'm just gonna put out my ranking. We can just argue it all we want, but Snow White at the bottom, then Nala, and then Rapunzel, then Cinderella, and then Esmeralda.
I would personally flip-flop the two. If I was to rank these, I would say Esmeralda has the top spot, then Rapunzel, then Cinderella, then Nala, then Snow White. I would just flip your number 2 and number 3.
Hmm.
I mean, if we were going with like the actual Rapunzel story, then I would definitely say Rapunzel because that was worse than the movie. But
True. In the reality one, she is blinded and gives birth to twins, and there's a whole extra part that Disney just cut to make it rated G.
All right, that's our official ranking for the podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm very sad that we can't technically count the xenomorph queen from Aliens because all her babies got murdered and then she got murdered. Dang it, Ripley.
I forgot that that's Disney now.
Oh yeah, I wanted to argue from that, but we probably did the wise thing.
but
and
she's a
stuck with
queen, not a
actual.
princess. We can't argue her as a princess.
But if we're arguing from that perspective, Nala never gets to be a princess. She's just automatically a queen when she marries Simba.
Oh no.
She never goes through the princess stage.
Yeah, she was never technically a royal child, just a noble child. So, yeah, technically no.
Well, see you next week, audience.